Hi, my name is Gregory Bohm, and I'm one of the esports coaching specialists that works with Connected Camps and NASEF. And in this video, I'm going to be showing you a little bit about how to use Adobe Premiere to edit some of the possible gameplay footage that you've been collecting throughout the season into things like highlight videos, as well as other types of media that you could maybe use to promote your team or put together for a YouTube channel for your team. So this screen here that you see, this is kind of like what the starting screen looks like on Adobe. And I have a video here that shows kind of what like an Overwatch League recap or highlight video would look like. And I'm going to be showing you basically all the basics that you'll need in order to make a video that kind of looks similar to this. And as well as just kind of the basics of manipulating your footage and gameplay and things like that using Adobe Premiere. But to get started, I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this. Normally, this video wouldn't be here and kind of all of these panels would be blank. But this panel right here, this is where you're usually going to be like managing your videos. So where you'll kind of be looking through the clips that you have that you're going to be editing. And down here is where you're going to actually be putting together your video or your sequence as it's known. This is known as the timeline. So this is where you're going to be kind of dragging your video clips and things like that down here in order to actually assemble your video. But down here on the bottom left, this is where you can create folders and upload all of your clips and things like that, as well as start a new sequence. So if we wanted to create a new video, we would right click down here in this panel, go to new item and select sequence. It's going to ask you a few of these kind of sequence presets. You can create your own, but generally the default one should be good. Because I'm going to show you a little trick that kind of alters the settings to whatever your footage, whatever the dimensions of your captures are set to. But you can adjust things like the resolution, maybe like the frames per second, um, think error and other aspects like that. But I recommend if you're just starting out, just using kind of the default settings. And then once you click OK, you can also name your sequence. But for now, we'll just leave it at the default. But once you click OK, it'll show you down here in the timeline your sequence, and these are the different kind of channels that you'll be dragging your media into in order to assemble your video. So you have 3 video channels to start, as well as 3 audio channels down here. But once you have like some video clips ready, you can create like a folder like I have here, this test folder, and right click and select import. And so if you have game clips in like a file on your computer, you'll navigate there. Then let's say, um, I just select this random one. I'll import the files and then it'll show my video here in the folder down here. And if I double click on it, it'll bring that up to my preview panel that's here. And I can kind of cycle through this video, select different parts to move down here into the bottom of my screen. Excuse me. But this blue marker is really nice to kind of scrub through the video. You can also just play the video to watch it normally. The volume might be a little loud, so I won't play it for too long. But once you're ready to kind of like select a certain part of your video, you can navigate to any part of it using that blue marker. And then if I press the I button on the keyboard, I is in ink, or as well I can use this button here, the mark in button. You'll notice that so right here at this time marker, 6:29:07, it'll place this in marker right there. And you can see it. I could even adjust it by left clicking if I wanted to. And then once you know how much of this video you want to include, so let's say I just want to go right to the end of the game here. Once I'm at the very end or where I want the video clip to stop, I'll click O on the keyboard to mark the out button, the out marker, sorry. Or you can use this button here as well to mark your out. And now that I have a nice little portion of this video selected, I can use these 2 buttons to drag my video or just the audio if I wanted down down to my sequence here to start putting it together. If I want to just drag the video, I can use that kind of movie reel button. And this was that cool tip I was going to show you. No matter what you set for your sequence settings, as soon as I drag this video clip that I have, it's going to ask you if you want to change the sequence settings to match what this video's settings are. And so that's usually a good rule of thumb to match your video with the actual resolution of your main footage. So I can use this button right here just to drag just the video, as well as I can use this button here to drag just the audio. And so the audio can only go in the audio channels, and the video can only go in the video channels. And if you wanted to just drag both and kind of have them linked to each other, I can just click on the video here and drag it down to the screen. But I'll actually delete this duplicate here. And now this way, if I move, you can adjust the two, but this makes it easy to just get both of them if you want the gameplay audio as well. And then you can click and drag to kind of highlight two things so that you move them together and don't adjust them too much. And it's okay as well if like these are on separate channels. So now that I have some video down here in my sequence, this panel right here is where you can kind of preview your sequence, and you'll see the time marker based on this blue line that you have down here on the timeline. And so if I move that to the very start and press play, I can now watch and see what I have here so far with my movie, or with my video. There are ways that you can adjust the videos once it's in the timeline as well. So let's say I wanted to extend this from the beginning a little bit. So let's say, I know it ends right at the end of the actual game. So let's say I wanted to make this a little bit longer. I would drag this out, and then since I have both selected, if I hover over the left side where the cursor turns to this kind of red marker, if I click and drag, it'll select the end of that clip. And now I can actually extend it to make it longer. So if I wanted to include a little bit more, now I have, twice as long of a clip to start out my video here. And then once you have maybe a few different clips, a few different highlights that you're putting down here into the timeline. So let's say I now want to select a different part of the video here, and I'll just, for time's sake, speed up a little bit. It's not super important that it's actually a good clip or anything for this video. But let's say I want to, transition or put like a different type of cut into my video here, rather than have it just, really abruptly kind of switch to this video. So now that I have these two clips right next to each other here, if I, on the video channel, select one of the ends here, and get that red cursor, if I right click on it, an easy way that you can apply a transition that'll kind of clean up some of those cuts between different clips. The default transition on Adobe Premiere is going to be I believe, let me just double check. Yes, I believe it's going to be a dissolve transition. So this is one that you're probably familiar with in a lot of movies. They'll use this to kind of show like passing of time usually. And I'm going to actually mute the audio here. But as you can see, if I rewind this a little bit, now instead of like a really abrupt cut, it's going to kind of blend the two together. And if you use this bar down here at the bottom, you can actually zoom in a bit so that we can get a closer look at this transition that we added, this cross dissolve here. Oops, and let me undo that with Control Z. I just moved it a little bit. But one thing you'll notice is that it's kind of a fast transition. So over here on this kind of source panel, if we select this transition here, so if I click on it so that it's highlighted, like shown there, if I go to Effect Controls up here, you can actually adjust some settings for this transition so that you can adjust the alignment. So right now it's centered at the cut, so it's going to take equal time before and after this cut in the video. But you could adjust it so that it starts at this cut or ends at the first cut. But I recommend usually, especially if you're using a dissolve, centering it. But let's say we wanted to make this a little bit longer, since it looks pretty fast right there, pretty quick. Um, right now it's set to about half a second, and I believe it shows seconds here in frames. So it shows 14 frames. If we set this to 30, which I believe is just about 1 second, but I may be a little off there. This will make the dissolve feel a little bit longer so that it kind of looks a little bit smoother compared to 14, which we had before. And so those are kind of the basics of adjusting transitions. Using that applied default transition is a really quick way to add whatever type of transition you want to in. To add just one of those cross dissolves in. But if you want to add some different ones, we can go to, I believe it's effects over here, and then video transitions. So if you open up this folder on the right that says video transitions, you can get a few more options. And so we can open up actually all of these folders here and see some of the different ones that we have available besides just a cross dissolve. So the cross dissolve, the default one is highlighted there, but you also have some kind of slight variations in these transitions. So for example, dip to black, if I just click and drag it in here, um, we can see some of the kind of differences in these. So this again is kind of quick, so I'm going to just adjust it again to be about 1 second. So this, instead of kind of blending the two together, will actually dip to a black screen and then come back to the new clip. But I can show just a couple of these. You may have seen like a wipe before, is a very popular transition that's used, like a band wipe. So I'll show what this looks like. Just a normal wipe here. It's kind of when the videos kind of slides across the screen. You may have seen some transitions like this in videos on YouTube and things like that, but it really is just kind of a lot of experimenting. A lot of times you're going to be better off just kind of using some of the more basic ones at first, since some of them can look a little bit cool, but are kind of hard to actually like use well. Like for example, this clock wipe. It's kind of a cool one to maybe throw in there, but maybe not use it too much. Cool. But yeah, there are a lot of cool options that are just available to you off the presets in Adobe. And I recommend using these for your transitions when you're making a video. But you can use other Adobe programs like After Effects to make some really cool transitions. Although, if you wanted to kind of take that next step. But once you have like a video put together, it'll kind of look something like this, like I showed at the very beginning, just to show what like a recap video. This is for an Overwatch League match looks like. And a lot of the preparation for this usually is going to involve, like, let's say you're going to make a highlight video for your high school team's Overwatch match from this week. A lot of times it's going to be watching that video on your own time outside of editing and kind of taking notes on the timestamps of really important moments that happened. And so you can see the way that I organized my clips here. So this was a Shanghai Dragons versus London Spitfire game, I believe. The way I kind of organized my videos here, if I open my folder here where I stored them all, is I organized them by map. And so you might do the same with the different maps that you play for an Overwatch game, for example. But I have a bunch of clips here, and by taking notes on the timestamps and kind of doing all that prep work beforehand, it can make it really easy if you kind of cut the video up to just kind of drag and drop all these videos in place. to get them looking the way that you want them to. But if I go back to that kind of test sequence that I was making here, and let's get rid of the audio here. Or actually, I'll leave one of them up just to show how to adjust the audio. But there are some other cool things you can do to adjust the video if you wanted to as well. So just like we did with the transition, if we go to Effect Controls and select our video clip that we have here, you can change some things like the scale. You can actually like zoom in or zoom out just by clicking and dragging to adjust. I can Control Z to switch the changes, or you can click on it and type in a number. So if I wanted to make this like half zoom, I could. And then you can also adjust like the positioning and scale. So this can be helpful if you want to like zoom in for a certain moment on something particularly interesting or exciting that happened. You can change the opacity, but you probably won't be using that too much for videos. Some of these things will be really important though for making titles, which I'll show in just a moment. But similar to those kind of effect controls for the videos and transitions, if you select an audio clip and go to the effect controls, you can also adjust the volume and things like that. I prefer using this audio clip mixer, however, is usually a really good way to adjust audio levels in your videos. And in order to do this, you may have to select the different audio clips like individually and adjust them. So let's say, just for an example, I'm going to copy and paste that audio clip. Oops. And if I add this right here, even though these audio clips won't actually match up, if I now select this audio clip and play it a little bit, and I'll need to unmute the track. This button here mutes any audio track. You can see the audio in the audio volume over here on this left panel. And so if I pause it and adjust this volume bar here, so let's say I bring it down 2 decibels, excuse me. I mean, it can be kind of hard using that sometimes. So sometimes I like to just type it in. So -2. Now you'll see it's a little bit lower, a little bit quieter. I can adjust this even more. Make it even quieter. And especially if you're talking over a video or something like that, you may want to lower the volume quite a bit. Because game volume can usually come through kind of loud. So sometimes even like -10, -15 decibels is totally fine, just so that you can hear yourself well over the video. But as you notice, as soon as it started this next audio clip, um, the volume went right back up to a high level. So you may need to change this for each one of these audio clips. So just like I clicked on this one and brought it down 15 decibels, I'm also now going to select this audio clip and bring this one down 15 decibels. And you'll notice that the change took place because you'll see this kind of yellow symbol appear. And now the audio levels will be matching for both of these videos. You can get a little bit more in depth with it, but I'm going to leave it at just the basics for right now. And I'll go ahead and show you how to make some titles for your videos as well. So kind of similar to this video, you can see some of the titles that I have here. You'll notice that it does require sometimes quite a few video channels. You may have to create some extra video channels than just the 3 that you start out with normally. But it's relatively simple to make some titles simple titles like this that are nothing too fancy but get the job done. And you can even add some images and things like that in as well. But just to show you a little bit about how to do that, so let's say I want to add an intro title to my movie here. I'm going to click and drag these files, those clips, so that they're out of the way. And then here at the beginning, I will go to, and you'll want to navigate to a place where you can easily find these titles when you make them. So I'm going to go to my test folder here just to put them in the same place. And then I'm going to go to File, New, Legacy Title. So just to show you again, File, new, legacy title. And the video resolution should match up with what the sequence settings are. And you can name this title. So I'm going to name this intro background, since the first thing we'll want to make is a background for our video, kind of like you saw that, or our title, kind of like you saw that gray background in the last title I had. So once you're in this screen here, you want to click, sometimes it doesn't show you all of like the tools you have available. So if it just shows you kind of, you know, this basic screen here, you'll want to click on these three lines and click on Tools, Styles. So styles isn't super important as much as properties. You may need to adjust these windows a little bit. So like this one doesn't need to be that big. There we go. Cool. So now that we have these tools and properties available, you can do some cool things like add some shapes in, as well as text and other things like that. So let's say we want to add just a background for our title here. I'm going to click on that square tool that you have. You could use the rounded rectangle if you wanted to. And I usually like to just adjust the square so that it's a little bit over the frame. So this shows you the frame of your video. So I like to adjust it so that it's a little bit over, so you know the entire thing is covered. And then over here in the properties, you can adjust like the fill type. So we can change the color of this background if we wanted to make it gray. We can just change it among the kind of color palette that you have here. And you can adjust this so that you can change which color you have available to you and then change the different kind of shades using that. But I'm going to leave it at just kind of like a gray title for now. If you wanted to, you could just start adding text on top of this using the type tool. But one thing I like to recommend is kind of layering your titles, especially since you'll likely be using some of these same things throughout your video. So I'm going to just keep this one at just a gray background. And so now I have my intro background title here. I'm just going to click and drag it into my sequence, and it starts out really tiny, so I'll have to zoom in a little bit. And I'm going to drag this out to make it a bit longer. So let's make it about like 3 seconds. Cool. So now if I drag these videos back, and you'll notice that the videos will normally snap to other things. So if I drag it close to this title, it'll snap to right at the end of it, and you'll know it's snapped when you see that black line appear and those little gray triangles. But now if I play my video, there will be just kind of this gray screen, and then my video will start. So let's say I wanted to add some text to this as well. And I want to add some video tracks, since like you saw, I had about like 5 or 6 in that other one. If I want to add video or audio tracks, I'll right click down here in the timeline, go to add tracks, and then it'll ask me how many of each track I like want to add. So let's say I want to add 2 video tracks here. It'll automatically add an audio track. You can adjust this though if you wanted to, but it usually will add an audio track for every video track that you add as well. Cool. So now that we have some extra video tracks to work with, I'm going to create another title. And I'm going to start my video on this gray background. So I'll go to, go to New, File, New, Legacy Title. Then I'll put intro text. And now I can make another title to add like some text in or something like that. And one thing you'll notice is that if I adjust where my video is on the timeline, or where it is on the kind of preview panel here, it'll change what's shown on your title screen when you're creating the title. So since I'm going to make the text for our title here, I want to just have that gray background. Let me adjust this again a little bit. Cool. So let's say I want to add some text. I'm going to have this say, Nasef Overwatch, or, you know, you could just say, insert your high school's name and then Overwatch. And you'll see that because the text bar that I made wasn't quite big enough, it cut off some of the text, but that's okay. If I just click on this mouse tool here, I can adjust it so that it includes the entire thing. So if you go to this 3-line button again here and click on actions, you have some tools available to help center your titles or your text if you'd like to as well. So you can center it in the middle and or vertically and horizontally. And so sometimes it's good to just center both of these, and then you can click on it and adjust it using just the arrows on the keyboard works, or just clicking and dragging it, but you might lose a little bit of accuracy. But now I have some text that I can add into my title. And you'll notice it doesn't show up with a gray background here, but if I just add this on top of my normal title, and one useful thing is if I adjust my blue line there, I can snap this to the blue line if you want to place something a little bit more precisely. But now you'll see if we play our title again, we'll have some gray and then some text will show up. But we maybe don't want it to just appear like that. So if we want to transition it a little bit in a little bit more smoothly, we can do the same thing we did with our video before. So if I select the left end here, the start of this title, and then right click, I can just click apply default transition. And this will make it do one of those cross dissolves. Just like with the video, this will make it kind of fade in a little bit. And you can adjust this like we showed before. I can type a number in, or I can click and drag this. And just make it 1 second there. And then if we wanted to, we could also apply a transition at the end. So if I do the same thing, then let's make this one 1 second as well. This will make it kind of fade in and out. And then we could also, let's say, apply another cross dissolve here. Now, instead of it looking really abrupt, it's kind of just a nice smooth video, or smooth title and smooth transition into your video. But looking at this video here, you can add some other things in here too, such as like these images that I have here in this title. So for example, I have here a London Spitfire logo and a Shanghai Dragons logo that take up this Video 4 and Video 5 channel. I mentioned that you can adjust some of like the positioning and scale of these items. So the way I accessed these was just by importing them the same way I did with a video file. And usually you want to get one with no background, kind of that checkerboard background you see on images sometimes, so that it'll fill in the blanks with whatever gray background or color you have. But you can adjust the position like I showed you. And I'm going to undo these. You can adjust the X position as well as the Y position. You can also adjust things like the scale. But one thing I wanted to show you is that you can also animate these things. So these things can change as well, like the position or scale. So here I have it kind of fading in like I showed before. But let's say I want to get rid of these fades here for the cross dissolves for the London Spitfire logo. And instead, I'm going to have it like appear into existence. So let's say I select this. If I go to scale and I click on this timepiece here, this is going to allow me to animate the scale of my London Spitfire logo, so to animate the size of it. I'm going to try to adjust it so that we can see it a little bit better here. There we go. So the moment you press this kind of timepiece button, it's going to start recording any changes you make to the scale. So let's drag this blue bar right to the start of it um, here. And using this bar up here is a good way to do that. I'm going to set its scale to be 0. So it's not going to exist right at the start. And then I'm going to play my video. Let's say right around here when the Shanghai Dragons logo starts to come in. I want my London Spitfire logo to kind of burst into existence. So I'm going to record one more keyframe. So you'll notice I put a keyframe here, this kind of diamond. If I press this button, it just recorded another keyframe for the scale being 0. So the scale is going to start at 0 for this video, stay at 0 until this moment, and then it's going to, by this time, it's going to get to about this size. So now, if I go to the beginning, instead of just dissolving in, this is going to actually like burst into existence, kind of like I showed there. And there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with the animation. It can be a little hard sometimes, so there may be some times that you just have to delete all of the keyframes and start over if you like mess up or something like that. But you can do, yep, and if you just delete that, it'll just get rid of all the keyframes you have. But you can change like the rotation, and you can animate this as well. So you can make any kind of image or anything you put in kind of spin around like that. But this is what one of those, what those titles generally look like. Like I said, it's just sort of kind of a few layers of text and kind of like a background, and then transitioning them into your video. There are some other things that I can show you, like if I right-click on a video clip and I click on speed and duration, it'll open up this window where you can actually adjust the speed of the video clip. So if you wanted to do like a slow-mo or something like that. So right now this is just at 100% speed, but I can drop it to 50%. You'll notice it makes the video a little bit longer, so it might not be a good idea to actually do that on this one. Let's go back to this clip here. I'm going to select this video. I'm going to play it once normally a little bit. I'll mute the audio again here. Play it once normally for a little bit, and then I'm going to go back to the beginning. I'm going to adjust the speed and duration. So I'm going to drop this down to 50%. It's going to make my video clip a little bit longer. Excuse me. But the video will actually be like slower. It'll be in like a slow-mo. And you could do this pretty easily. You could kind of like add a slow-mo portion into this video here. If I select the razor blade tool, the razor tool, and I can use this blue marker to kind of line up my cuts. So I'm going to place one cut there, and then one cut here, and I want just this portion here to be in slow-mo. You want to make sure to select the selection tool one more time, and then I can adjust the speed and duration, drop this down to 50%. Now I've got kind of like a normal speed portion that smoothly transitions into a slow-mo. And then right at the end of that cut, it'll go back. Cool. And then you can also do the same thing for audio clips as well. So if I go to speed and duration, I can slow down the audio so that it'll like match as well with the gameplay. So for example, if I delete those there and adjust this one so that it's 50%, then I'll adjust this one so that it's 50% as well. This gameplay and audio will be matched up. It might sound a little bit funny, but at least it'll be kind of like matched up. Might actually be a pretty funny thing to put into your video. And it's pretty simple too. Kind of an easy way that you can put some kind of cool effects in. Um, I was mainly intending for this to be just kind of like the basics, so I won't get into anything too advanced for right now, but those are kind of the main basics for just assembling your videos, and kind of putting them together, creating a timeline or creating a sequence, I should say. Once you have a completed video, and I think in this video I have a little bit of music in here as well to show you what it can kind of look like once you add some music into your video. I'll maybe unmute it a little bit. You can spend a lot of time trying to match your video up with audio, but this video, for example, I don't think I did adjust the audio. I just found some kind of like random tracks that I could use that weren't copyrighted, so that you don't have to run into any issues with that. Um, but I didn't take any time to like match up the music or anything with this. And usually it can end up working out pretty well because that's something you can get hung up pretty easily on, is just kind of like matching things up. But you'll notice I like to just kind of generally switch between like first person perspectives, especially in a game like Overwatch, if you can. And then as well as kind of like some background, kind of like environmental ones or like bird's eye view. For like the start of the map, you can kind of have some clips of just like the defensive setup, then jump right into kind of like the exciting moments, and really just kind of cut out the non-essential the parts of the video clip. This one is pretty long, I would say, but once you have a video clip ready like this, uh, you can go ahead and bring your blue marker right to the very start of your video, um, and press I to mark an in, and you'll notice that I have the in and out markers already kind of adjusted, but for example, this is kind of what it'll look like when you don't have anything. So if you move the marker all the way to the start of your video and press I, and then bring it all the way to the end here. And usually I like to press play and just kind of let it play out here. And then once it stops automatically, I press the O button to mark the in and out, like I showed you before, of just my whole video here. And you'll want to make sure that any of the channels that you're using that have media on them, you want to make sure that they're selected here so that they're blue on the left here. And once you're ready, you'll also select the sequence down here. So make sure it's selected. Like for example, if I wanted to export this video, I would make sure that this one is selected. Whereas if I wanted to export this one, I'm going to double click on it, and make sure it's highlighted here. But once you're ready, you'll go to File, Export, and then click Media. And it's going to automatically be set to the sequence that you're currently selected on. But I highly recommend for your export settings using this H.264. This is usually going to be the highest quality video and the lowest file size. But then it's going to ask you like where you want to save it to. So if you click on here, you can adjust those things where your video is actually saving to. But then once you're ready, you'll click on Q, and it's going to open up the Adobe Media Encoder. And it might be different, on other editing platforms, but putting together the video is generally going to be pretty similar. And so now that the encoder is opened up, once you see your video queued up here, you can just go ahead and click the play button, and it'll start exporting your video. And once it's done, you'll be able to find it in this folder here that you have set up. Cool. But I hope that was useful, and that maybe gave you some tips for, especially if you're already recording a lot of your gameplay. I know with, games like Rocket League and Overwatch, you have ways in game to just save replays. Um, so it is a good idea if you're already recording these things to maybe try to put them together somehow into some kind of video. It's very easy to create a YouTube channel for your team, kind of try to promote it a little bit if you're already gathering this kind of stuff. But I hope that was useful. Maybe in the future we can make some more advanced videos to go into some of those things a little bit more in detail. But that's really just like the basics of kind of manipulating your video and your audio and kind of creating some basic titles using Adobe Premiere. But thank you for watching, and like I said, I hope you found it useful.